Thanks, everyone. Nice to be here. Thank you, Jeff, for putting this on again. I think let's have I'd actually like to call for a round of applause for Jeff Passmore, because really, we should be so grateful to Jeff, because there is no real big Canadian conference that focuses on the bioeconomy, and if Jeff didn't step up and bring us all together, there wouldn't be one. So thank you very much for Jeff. You know, you've put together something amazing once again. So let me begin by saying this. You've all heard, it's become very common to hear that there's billions of dollars, maybe trillions of dollars being deployed into the clean energy economy. And what's not said, though, nearly as much, are the billions of dollars that are not being deployed. And those billions of dollars, those extra billions of dollars, are not being deployed due to bottlenecks in project development and bottlenecks in capital deployment, bottlenecks in the capital market. So addressing bottlenecks is absolutely key, because we have so far to go, and in order to meet our goals, I mean, if you just talk about SAF goals, in order to meet the goals of SAF, of goals of the airlines to purchase sustainable aviation fuel by 2050, we need to build hundreds of SAF plants in the next several decades. Just to put a point on it, you don't just build a SAF plant. These are massive biorefineries that cost over $1 billion a pop, right? And we need hundreds of them. And by the way, that's just one molecule. That's just SAF. That's not ground transportation fuels. That's not char. That's not biomaterials. That's not renewable chemicals, of which there are hundreds. That's one molecule. So we have, as an industry, we have as a sector, a mountain to climb. So time is short and the river rises, right? Tick-tock. And we have to come together as an industry to quickly address these bottlenecks. And so what I want to talk to you about today are two really powerful ways of doing exactly that. One is something you've heard about before, I'm sure, bioeconomy development opportunity zones, BDO zones. I'm going to talk to you about what happened with BDO zones in 2024, and then I'm going to make really a relatively new announcement about a new partnership that we've made with New Energy Risk to develop feedstock supply insurance. And so I see a lot of familiar faces out there, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jordan Solomon. I'm the CEO of Ecostrat, and I'm the chairman of the Bioeconomy Development Opportunity Zone Initiative. That's a mouthful, so we call it the BDO Zone Initiative. For those of you who know Ecostrat, and we do some due diligence for feedstock supply chain for many of those of you who are project developers, we do more feedstock supply due diligence than any other company in North America. What that means functionally is that we'll have between 20 and 30 feedstock supply chain due diligence projects going on in the shop at any given time. So, but about 3 years ago, we launched the BDO Zone Initiative, the Bioeconomy Development Opportunity Zone Initiative, to certify regional readiness for biomanufacturing. And what we realized is that it was very hard for companies that were looking for great places to build plants to find those great places. And by the same token, we realized that it was very hard for those great places to stand out from all the other places that have surpluses of biomass. By the way, there's hundreds of them, right? So it's really hard for one place to raise the flag on itself and say, hey, this is a really good place. It's hard. And so the idea behind BDO zones has always been very simple. And it's been to connect the best places for biomanufacturing to identify the best places for biomanufacturing in the world credibly, and then connect those zones with project developers around the world. And we thought that by credibly identifying those zones that have been pre-vetted for giving projects a soft landing, that project developers would naturally gravitate to those places. And in 2024, we've seen some real breakthrough results. And so I want to talk to you about what those results have been, but just sort of a recap on what is a rating. It's a standards-based assessment of regional readiness for biomanufacturing. How ready is a particular region to host a new biofuels, renewable chemical, biogas plant? Does it have enough feedstock? Does it have a welcoming community? Does it have good infrastructure? Does it have workforce? Does it have roads, et cetera? And so what do they do when you assess a region when you pre-vet a region for having those characteristics? Well, they get what we call an investment grade rating, and those investment grade ratings are recognized all over the world by project developers as some of the best places to build their plants. And so what happens? It's not rocket science. The phones start ringing, right? If you were a project developer, would you rather call a place that had been pre-vetted for 700,000 tons of forest biomass, that had been pre-vetted for infrastructure like the rail spur that you desperately have been looking for, like the welcoming community you've been looking for? How about 20 different suppliers that are willing to come together and make contracts to supply your project with fiber, or with corn stover, or with wheat straw, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what you're looking at right here is the BD Ozone rating system. The highest rating a region could ever get is a AAA. There's been 0 AAA ratings ever issued in 3 years of BD Ozones, but there have been about 6 or 7 AA ratings. There's been over 50 A ratings, and there's been some Bs and triple Bs, et cetera, et cetera. So this is where BD Ozones exist today. These are ratings that have been issued. That little star means the rating's been issued, and where you don't see a little UFO light coming up, that means the rating's in progress and it will be issued later in the year, most of these by Christmas. But what you're looking at is our ratings, BD Ozone ratings, all over North America. This is the tip of the iceberg. You're looking at 61 ratings. 61 ratings is not enough ratings to catalyze rapid scaling of the North American bioeconomy. Some of these ratings are for corn stover. Some of these ratings are for wheat straw. Some of them are for woody biomass. Some of them are for, a few of them are for MSW. In our opinion, there need to be at least 500, and the goal is 1,000 BD Ozones across North America in the next 4 years, to develop essentially a catalog, a Rolodex of great pre-vetted places to give, as I said before, bioenergy projects a soft landing. Here's what happened in 2024. In 2024, there were 43 new BD Ozone ratings issued. Again, there's 61 in total, but 43 were issued this particular year. There are 23 projects right now under discussion in those bioeconomy development opportunity zones. There are 14 BD Ozones today, right now, and you're going to hear from one of them. I'm going to invite a special guest up here in about 5 minutes. 14 BD Ozones are in discussion with 23 biomanufacturing projects, and that's really a big deal. We're quite simple people here at the BD Ozone Initiative. It sounds complicated, but really, these are economic development instruments that do one thing: they help make the phones ring. And if you're an economic development manager, you know there's no economic development if the phones ain't ringing, right? You need that inbound call so you can grab it and you can build around it and support these projects. Are like little seeds. They fail easily. They need to be nurtured. They need to be nurtured with all sorts of different kinds of support. These drop the seed to the economic developer, and it's the economic development community can then grow it. There are $4 billion being raised with 4 projects today in BD Ozones. I'll show you who they are in a second. We know that project developers care a lot about these ratings. How do we know? Because we know who sees them, we know who downloads them. Every project gets at least 850 views. I'm sorry, I said project. I meant every BDO zone rating gets 850 views. That means the ratings are 70 pages long. It means project developers are downloading these instruments, and they are looking at them and they're using them. And that's what's making the phones ring. So, these are some of the projects who are raising capital right now, and they're located in bioeconomy development opportunity zones. There's huge recognition on the part of the U.S. government, and we were very pleased to announce this year that the BDO zone initiative, BDO zone ratings, were mentioned 4 times in Secretary Vilsack's new plan to enable the bioeconomy in America, which was dropped just this past March 2024. There is no tool referenced more times in this 70-page document than BDO zones, which are mentioned on page 4, 27, 28, and 29. And it's an unbelievable document. And as Jeff Passmore says, that's a bioeconomy plan for the nation, something that this country doesn't have. So this is an unbelievable template for a national bioeconomy strategy for this country that is well articulated and could absolutely function as a great jumping off point if we were to follow Jeff's lead and develop a national bioeconomy strategy for this country. So big endorsement by the U.S. government. We're seeing all sorts of new ways to use BDO zones. One of them is to help mitigate wildfire risk. And you heard Derek talk about the importance of mitigating wildfire risk just in this country, right? In North America in general, the country's burning, right? Every summer it gets worse and worse. And one of the ways that we can help mitigate wildfire risk is to put markets that can utilize the wildfire that's otherwise going to be left in the forest and is otherwise going to burn. Market development is absolutely key to mitigating wildfire risk. So how do we get the plants to go to site themselves in the places that are high priority wildfire, that are likely to burn? Well, what you're looking at right here is the U.S. Forest Service map of high priority wildfire areas. Those are very high priority are red, high priority are yellow in that map you're looking at. That means they're likely to burn in the next 5 years, okay? These areas are going to burn. These little hexagons that you see are potential bioeconomy development opportunity zones in high priority wildfire areas that present at least 50,000 bone dry ton a year of fiber. It'd be like 100,000 tons of green tons of fiber. So there's a lot of them, right? There's like 77 of them. So we don't have this in Canada, but we should. It's a massive high priority to put BDO zones in wildfire areas in the U.S. We think it should also be a high priority for the Canadian government. So I want to play you some testimonials here so you can hear.
The principal out of South Korea saw that BDO study, and he was on a plane to Libby, Montana within less than a month. We could have tried to market ourselves, but we're a very small rural county. I mean, a population of 20,000. We don't have a lot of resources, and I don't think we would have been discovered at all had it not been for the BDOZ rating and having that report.
Thinking about place-based equity, you just heard about a place that, a rural, remote area that may not get the kind of attention that it deserves. And this kind of investment helps facilitate that kind of interest. The Rural Business Development Grant Program, this has been used significantly for folks who are interested in BDO zones.
So some of the companies that I'm working with now who are attempting to undergo feasibility studies for facilities, I would love to say they found me purely by going through our website and our marketing initiatives, and I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure a lot of it is because of the network that the initiative had. Before the BDO zone rating, we had good uptake again. but this has just increased it exponentially. And so for me, it's an absolute win. And it's definitely giving us access and visibility with companies, with organizations, with regions in the foreign direct investment market that we didn't have before. So if we were able to land all four, the construction phase alone for the four of them total would be about $1 billion.
Ecostrat's BDO Zone initiative and the key feedstock, community, and infrastructure details that are shared are extremely valuable for CHAR.
The 2 or 3 weeks post-announcement of the certification tripled our deal flow in the forestry product side of things. We probably spoke to 10 or 12 different clients.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be approaching phase one on a multi-million-dollar project if it weren't for Ecostrat's BDO zone.
That's the thing. Like, I got an inquiry yesterday. Brand new company, never heard of, whatever, because of our BDO zone.
After a year.
After a year. That was yesterday. So obviously it's still working, but the reality is it has helped me do my job. And if it can help me do my job and it can bring, you know, benefit to my community, all of that is a major win for me. So I am so stoked by that.
Well, I tell you, I'm a little surprised by seeing Shauna here because we've got Shauna's boss right here, Matt, and I would like to invite Matthew up to talk a little bit about the impact of Sarnia Lambton's BDO zone rating on economic development in Sarnia. I mean, it's good to hear from a video, but let's have a big round of applause for the real thing. Introduce yourself and I'll take a few.
Most certainly. Oh, thank you very much, Jordan. Happy to be here and certainly to speak towards our experience with the going through the BDO zone process and certainly what we've achieved as a result or the potential achievements. Myself, Matthew Slotwinski, I'm the CEO with the Sarnia Lambton Economic Partnership and certainly happy to participate in the discussion.
So, Matt, just talk about what was your MO or Sarnia Lambton's plans, or how did you work before the BDO zone? Was there any kind of plan to attract bio-based development? And what was the impact afterwards?
No, certainly. Thank you. We've been focusing as a community on the industrial bioeconomy and trying to attract clean, green, sustainable chemistry to the area for about 15 years now. Now, with that said, while we have undertaken various studies to show our potential for feedstock supply, what we hadn't been able to achieve is a study that has some level of consistency with other areas that we're ultimately competing against, that looks at all of the critical factors that are necessary for someone making a site selection decision when utilizing a particular type of feedstock. And as was noted in the video there by my colleague Shauna, right now we're currently in active discussion with 4 companies that are undergoing site selection, the site selection process for what could amount to $1 billion in potential investment in Sarnia Lambton should they all ultimately move forward. That creates significant diversification opportunity from our historic sectors. It creates additional strength and value for our ag community, and it really drives the advancement of new jobs to the area.
That's great. I just want to wrap up because we don't have that much time, but farming, I want you to talk a little bit about the impact of new bio-based development in Sarnia on-farm stability. What's the impact on the farmers? Sarnia Lambton was rated, A-rated for corn stover, and look, there's no guarantee that the 5 projects with whom you're in discussion are going to actually land in Sarnia, but if one of them does, what's the impact on the farming community?
Yeah, so I think the impact on the farming community, there's sort of 2 avenues there. The first is it provides significant stability to the farming community, both the large-scale operations that are surely going to invest, but also some of the smaller farms where perhaps people have second jobs. They might be able to bring in additional income, stabilize themselves truly as being able to dedicate themselves to agriculture. But the other side of things is the economic opportunity for companies to say, hey, look, we have a critical mass locally of corn stover or of wheat straw, which maybe we'll go through the process again for, given the success, and say, we can come together as a cooperative, perhaps, to supply the feedstock to potential development, and maybe even invest in that development, which really escalates the economic opportunity for those that live in our community and hopefully will continue to thrive in the community as well.
Matt, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So look, thank you. It's great to hear from people on the ground that are enjoying the benefits of these economic development instruments. I would say this. There need to be more BDO zones across the country. And one of the reasons that Sarnia-Lambton was able to so quickly obtain their BDO zone is because they applied, I believe, to the Clean Fuels Fund, which is a great NRCan program that is about to open again in December. Like any day, that program is going to open. And they keep that program open for a month, maybe two, and then they slam the doors shut. So there is a program that's about to open for all you representatives of Canadian municipalities and economic developers or projects that want a site in a particular area. The Canadian government will fund BDO zone ratings. In fact, that program gives priority points if you apply for a BDO zone rating. And in fact, Sarnia-Lambton was one of 10 applicants last year who applied and successfully received funding for a BDO zone. So Erin Garswood has a great team. She works for the BDO Zone Initiative. She's the head of the BDO Zone Initiative. There's Erin. Go up to Erin Garswood. If you're interested, she will help you apply to the Clean Fuels Fund and help the Canadian government help you make the phones ring. Okay? So please do that. In my last 5 minutes, I want to talk to you about something different. I want to talk to you about feedstock supply insurance. And we announced about a month ago a partnership with New Energy Risk to develop an insurance instrument that can effectively cap biomass feedstock costs. One of the key barriers to securing capital for bio-based projects is that capital markets are concerned that the project is not going to get the feedstock 5 years from now, that the feedstock cost is going to go up 5 or 10 years from now, that the suppliers are going to go bankrupt. And there's a reason why they have these concerns, and all these concerns are very legitimate. The reason is that biomass suppliers are, in general, small and medium size. They tend to be sawmills. They tend to be small farming communities or farmers in general. And it's not possible to do what capital markets call balance sheet financing. Because if they breach their agreement to supply the project, you can't sue them. I mean, you can sue them, but they have no money or they have no balance sheet. So you can't, these supply chains aren't investment grade because they're composed of non-investment grade suppliers. And because of that, billions of dollars of investment capital are effectively locked up. So you have all these suppliers that have multiple contracts, and projects like many of you are trying to finance based upon these multiple 1 year, 2 year spot agreements with small and medium sized suppliers, but it's difficult, right? Because the capital markets can't get their heads around that. So the idea is to put together an insurance instrument between all those multiple suppliers, between all those small, tiny, hairy contracts, and put one feedstock supply insurance policy behind the bio project, underwritten by an investment grade carrier. Now, New Energy Risk has done this before in technology insurance. Our job in this collaboration, Ecostrat's job, is to provide the mathematics to predict the likelihood that the supply chains behind your projects are going to succeed and fail. So we have some of the best mathematics in the world to predict that. NER's job is to do what they can do, and what they've done before is to secure underwriting on that basis. What does the product do? The product does four things. Number one, it caps feedstock cost at levels above which your project doesn't operate profitably at. We call that the red line cost. That's that red line up there. Above the red line cost, the project can't afford to pay back their debt cost. The insurance caps feedstock costs above the red line, enabling the project to guarantee to the capital provider, to the bank, that it will always, always, always service its debt obligations. That has huge impacts on a project. It means the project gets its debt and its sub-debt and gets financed faster. It means the project gets its capital more cheaply, up to 200, maybe 250 basis points less expensively. That profit drops directly to the bottom line. Coverage term and triggers. The coverage is the difference between what the project actually paid for feedstock and what it needed to pay to still get feedstock above the red line. So let's say the project red line's at $100 a bone dry ton, meaning it can't afford to operate if it has to pay more than $100 a dry ton for feedstock. If the prices go up such that that project needs to pay $110, $120, $130 a ton, the insurance covers $10, $20, $30 a ton so the project can continue to operate. Are you with me? Right? It's a big deal. It effectively caps that feedstock cost. The term is also quite a big deal. The term is going to be unit contingent with the debt cost. Not 1 year, not 3 years, that's useless. It has to be unit contingent to cover the debt terms. That means 10 years. The triggers are, of course, cost and quantity. So if you have any questions, find me and we can talk about that. We're looking for 3 projects. When I and NER announced it in San Francisco at ABLC a week ago, we were mobbed, and we want to manage people's expectations. There's an announcement to develop this instrument now. There is not feedstock supply insurance yet. We expect the first policy to be issued, though, by March this year. We need 2 more projects, not 1 million tons, but something between 500,000 tons and 50,000 tons? Oh, it's my wife. Are you finished yet? Yes, I am. Feedstock supply insurance is going to support key market players, capital markets, governments, developers, and in a nutshell, what is this catalytic product going to do? Decrease investor uncertainty around feedstock supply and reliability, enable faster deployment of capital at lower risk, decrease risk in supply chains, and help scale up what we're all here for, our global bioeconomy. So I want to thank you very much. If you have any questions, there's Aaron Garswood over there. Find me. We have a booth right out there. It's called BDO Zones. Thank you very much.